It's interesting. They say that you carry your baggage with you wherever you go, right? If you're an anxious person. And as much as I agree with that, I think it's also important to mention that we literally carry our anxiety with us in our pockets, in our bags, purses, whatever. Right here. Our phones are, in their own right, a source of anxiety that we carry with us literally everywhere, right? When was the last time you left your apartment, your home, whatever, without your phone? And it's not necessarily what, the phone is literally, right? This piece of metal with, a screen and all that, but more so what it represents. And for many people, the phone is an amazing thing, right? I'm not going to argue with that. It's totally changed how we stay connected with people, right? Friends, family who we're physically separated by, all of a sudden, these devices in our pockets now allow us to bridge that gap seemingly whenever from wherever. But apart from that, and I'd argue for most people, it's a distraction. And maybe you know this all too well, but it's so easy to fall into this rut, this cycle, this spiral of whether it's doom scrolling TikTok, Instagram, refreshing the YouTube homepage, or constantly checking Safari. I mean, I have been in instances like on the subway where a guy was literally a few days ago just toggling back and forth between Robinhood and Fidelity to check his portfolio every 30 seconds. Like, dude, it's not going to change that drastically in that time. And the thing is, it's not necessarily because that's what he's concerned about. It's really because he, like so many people, are more concerned with being with themselves, right? Being with their thoughts and feelings without any form of distraction, stimuli, noise to occupy them, right? It's so easy to find something to focus on externally rather than internally, right? I mean, at the literal, tap of some keys, you can watch that brand new show or movie. You can rewatch an old one. You can, look at the celebrity's latest outfit. You can watch a live stream of someone else playing a video game when you're not even there at your desk to play yourself. So if that's the case, right, it's like, why would we not do that? Why would we not choose to, engage ourselves in all of these amazing, uses of our time, right? It allows us to feel productive. It allows us to feel like we're getting something out of this boring commute, this 5 minutes we have in between a meeting or a class or whatever. But in reality, the effects of it, the detrimental effects of it don't really reveal themselves as plainly as you'd expect. Because like I mentioned earlier, right? When you reach for your phone subconsciously, you're really avoiding yourself, right? You're avoiding sitting with yourself. You're avoiding being with yourself by doing, right? By doing something instead of just allowing yourself to be. If you think about it, it's the equivalent of, right, this relationship with yourself. You're choosing to actively avoid, to ignore your own thoughts and feelings. Like, I'm sure you've been in situations, or maybe you have literally been this person. I've been guilty of it in the past as well, where you're with a friend and they're on their phone, like they're scrolling Twitter, they're shooting texts nonstop. Like, how do you feel in those situations? You feel, at least from my experience, but like they don't really care that they're not there for you. You're not seen, you're not heard. Like, whatever it is you're trying to communicate to them is just going in one ear out the other because they're not fully there. You can't do both things at the same time, right? As much as some people think they can. Because being present with someone, especially yourself, it takes all of your focus and your energy. And that's the thing, is that people these days are so unwilling, to put any time or energy towards being with themselves, towards building this relationship with themselves. And that's what gives them, or rather perpetuates, their anxiety. Because the thing with anxiety is that it's stemming from this concern for the future, right? These what ifs, like, oh my gosh, like what if I say this? What if this happens? Or, what if this person, so on and so forth. What if, right? This thing that hasn't even happened yet, what if? And our phones, not only do they create a lot of these what if scenarios, but they're preventing us from being able to address why this happens in the first place. Because the thing is, with anxiety, it's a projection of your past lived experience onto the future, right? Whether you realize it or not, because it's so deeply ingrained in your system, your operating system for who you are in your day to day being, right? It's like if you know that, this coworker of yours is, I don't know, let's say frustrating to work with, and you know that in prior experiences this person happens to be a frustrating person to work with, then you're naturally going to project that onto any sort of encounter you have with them. Just as much as on a deeper level, right? When you get anxious about these what if scenarios, about what if, I do this or say this, it's because you've had experiences in your past that have left this sort of emotional imprint on you that is deeply affecting you, deeply has a firm grip on your life, even in the future, right? It's those situations when you're a kid and you don't get that grade on a test, you don't meet that bar that someone has set for you. And whenever that happens, you get yelled at. So now in the future, you're a full grown adult. And when you don't necessarily meet the expectation of, say, your manager or a professor or a friend, you get that same sort of pit in your stomach, that feeling of tightness in your chest that says, I'm going to get yelled at or I'm going to get criticized. The what if, right? The future thinking. You're already projecting your past onto the future. And the thing is, the past, it doesn't let go. It doesn't let go unless you let go of it. And the only way to let go of it is to sit with it. To sit with it and just be. And not cower in fear or turn your cheek, as we so often do when we avoid our thoughts and feelings, but to really sit there, be present with them, just as we would with a friend who is trying to tell us about a stressful or emotionally taxing situation that they've been through. When you really sit there, you spend the time to be curious, to embrace those difficult thoughts and feelings, and you understand where they're coming from, then you slowly loosen your hold on the past. When you loosen your hold on the past, you free yourself up in the present and for the future. And that's what these, amazing as they are, devices in our pockets do. They prevent us. They're a convenient distraction from ourselves, from sitting with our past. And all that does is create more anxiety and more perpetuates everything we have already known or that we believe. And there's this quote, right? All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. When was the last time you just sat in a room by yourself? No sort of external noise, right? No music, no roommates, no friends, no family, but just really sat with yourself. Really fully present with yourself. Being, not doing. And listening to what your thoughts and feelings are trying to communicate to you. Because that's what they are, right? They're just a vessel for communication of your inner self, your soul, right? We tend to avoid our thoughts and feelings because we associate ourselves with them. We think that we are our thoughts and feelings. We think that if we have anxious thoughts, that we are anxiety personified. If we have sad thoughts, we are sad. When in reality, they are just a feedback mechanism. They are trying to tell us that there is something deeper at play here for why we're getting upset, for why we're getting anxious, for why we feel so fearful of the future. And that never goes away unless you step bravely into that space to see them, to embrace them. And I understand, I do, how difficult it can be. I mean, I spent the first, whew, 20 some years of my life with deeply rooted anxiety, inadequacy, lack of worthiness. And I used to see my, you know, my extroversion, my productivity as crutches. It was like, oh, like I'm an extroverted person. That's why I need to always be around people. Like I'm a productive person. That's why I always need to be doing something, always connected, always like on my phone or computer, doing, not being. In reality, I was afraid. I was afraid of what my thoughts and feelings were trying to communicate to me. So I ran from them. I never embraced them. And it was only after I went through my own saga, let's call it that, where I was at my lowest in my life, where I was spiraling and I had no choice, right? There was no other option for me in that situation but to finally sit with my thoughts and feelings. And as difficult and painful at times as a process and journey as it was, because revisiting your past, the wounds, the trauma, it's going to hurt. That I can tell you. But when you really embrace them You see them and you hear them fully, just as you would with your best friend. You develop understanding, and from understanding, you breed compassion. And that compassion for yourself helps you let go. And when you let go, you stop projecting your past onto the future. And you start to undo those deeply woven fibers of anxiety from who you are. It sounds so simple, right? It sounds so simple, just not using this all the damn time, right? I'm not gonna pretend like I'm a saint, that I don't use it. I do. But just try to minimize it. Reduce your usage. Find a healthy balance if you can. It doesn't have to be all at once. It can be gradual over time. Maybe download one of those apps that restricts your time, or delete some apps, or set focus mode on. Maybe when you're commuting to class, your job, just running errands, don't bring the phone. I know that's a shocker, that sounds terrifying. Don't bring the phone, or just don't listen to anything. Don't listen to music, don't listen to a podcast. Maybe even consider bringing a book, a notebook or something, and just journaling, doodling, anything. Just sit and be. That's it. Because not only do many of man's problems stem from his inability to sit in a room alone, but also his ability to fulfill his potential and reach his dreams. Because at the end of the day, you carry that baggage with you everywhere you go. You carry your anxiety with you everywhere you go. And if you never build that relationship with yourself, and you never come to peace and you embrace those thoughts and feelings of yours, you're always going to be limiting yourself, holding yourself back. So, with that, I hope that you take this into consideration, if even for a moment, right? And just allow yourself to be. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Just start with one, right? It could be 1 minute, one workout, one commute. Just start with one and just see how you feel. Use this relationship with yourself just as much as you don't build a friendship with someone overnight. It definitely doesn't happen with yourself either. If anything, you've got more to talk about with yourself than anyone else in the world. So, with that, I appreciate your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.